Welcome back, everyone. For today's video, we are back with day number 7 of the Global Chess League being held here in Mumbai, India. Now, after the first 6 rounds, my team is not doing so great. We're in the middle of the field with 4 rounds remaining. We're in a situation where we need to start winning every match if we're going to have any chance at finishing in the top 2 and playing in the grand final. So in our first match of the day, since we're playing 2 matches today, we are playing against the upgrad Mumba Masters, and I have the white pieces on board number 1 against Grandmaster Maxime Vachier Lagrave from France. So I have the white pieces, and I start out with the move pawn to e4. Maxime plays e5. This might come as a surprise if anybody has been living under the rock for the last 5 years since the pandemic occurred back in 2020. You might be shocked to see MVL playing the move e5. MVL, of course, is a player who is known for his patented Sicilian Najdorf, which he has played many, many times over his illustrious and very lengthy career. But Maxime decides instead to play e5. It's worth noting that he did play this in the recently concluded FIDE World Cup held in Goa, India. And in the first match in this event, he also played it against the 5-time world champion Vachier. So while it's a little bit of a surprise, it's not a huge surprise to me. Now I play the move knight to f3, we get knight to c6, and here I play the move knight c3, Maxime goes knight f6, and after d4, takes, we have reached the classic Scotch 4 knights. Both sides have brought the knights out at the start of the game. These knights are very active for both sides. And with the knights out early, this is considered to be one of the most solid setups for white, but it's not without some venom or some bite, as there are chances to get an advantage. Very recently, or I should say in recent times, I have actually played this with great success. I beat Fabiano Caruana in the 2023 Grand Swiss Tournament in a classical game, which propelled me to the 2024 candidates. So this is something that I've played quite a bit. So MVL plays bishop b4. I trade the knights, I go bishop to d3, guarding this pawn on e4 from being captured, and now we get the move d5. Here I take, we get castles, and now I castle my king out of the center. Now you might be wondering, can't white take the second pawn on c6? If white were to take this pawn on c6, after the move rook to e8, bishop to e3, and knight g4, even though temporarily white is up 2 pawns in this position here, black has great counterplay. The knight hits the bishop. There are threats with queen h4 if I castle. And as you guys can tell from the valuation bar, black is in fact better. So that's why I decide to castle here, and now MVL takes on d5. In Norway chess, Gukesh, the reigning world champion, played the move bishop to g4 against me. I got an advantage, and I would go on to convert this into a victory, which is why MVL decides to go for the classic pawn takes pawn. Now I play the move h3, stopping black from playing bishop to g4, and here we get the move rook to b8. Now I play the move bishop to g5, we get bishop to e7, and here I play the move pawn to b3, protecting this pawn from being captured. If I place a a3, there's rook takes b2, and black is going to win the game. So I play b3, protecting the pawn here, and now we get the move h6. I play bishop h4, and here MVL plays move bishop e6. Now what's surprising about this move is how bad it actually is in this game. It's a move that looks very natural and very human to me. You develop your bishop guarding this pawn, but the computer actually believes that this bishop belongs on this b7 diagonal and not on this e6 square. Now this really also speaks to how difficult it is to change your openings when you've played a certain opening your entire career. MVL, as I mentioned at the start of this video, is a player who has played the Sicilian, very specifically the Najdorf, for a very, very long time. He has very limited experience in e4, e5, and this move that looks very natural, as I said, is just a mistake, as you can tell from the evaluation bar. So after bishop to e6, I bring my queen to f3 here. This also is the secondary reason behind playing h3, is that now the queen is on a great square to hit this pawn and spy the knight, and black can never go bishop g4 because I will take the bishop. So now I've got the queen hitting the pawn, hitting the knight. The pawn stops bishop g4. I'm free to bring the rooks to the center of the board. And at this point, it's a very difficult position to play for black. So MVL goes for the move c5. I play rook d1. And now we get this move pawn to d4. Now, when MVL played this move, I initially thought this could be kind of dangerous, and then I realized almost immediately that in this position, because black has pushed the pawns and they're not able to go further up the board, I am, in fact, a little bit better after trading and playing knight e4, bishop e7, and the move rook to e1. Now, you might be thinking, why am I saying that white is better? The reason is that in this position, this pawn on d4 cannot go forward, and this pawn on c5 is immobile as well. If black ever plays c4, I can simply take a free pawn here, and I'm up a pawn, and I have a big big advantage. So this pawn can't go forward, this one can't go forward, the knight is targeting the pawn, and as we're about to see, I have a very simple and concrete plan in the next couple of moves, after which black is going to be under severe pressure. So MVL plays move rook to e8. Now, this is also a big mistake positionally here from MVL. It's a move that I didn't realize how bad it was initially during the game, but the computer wants this very awkward-looking move, rook to b6 here, followed by this move, bishop to g5 here. Basically, the point being the rook always guards this bishop, and now you keep both these diagonals open for these darks for b's. It's not something that makes a lot of sense to me, frankly, as I look at it just sort of on the spur of the moment right now, but apparently this is correct. MVL instead plays rook e8. And now after this move, rook to e2, it is abundantly clear to me that I have excellent chances to win this game, because what's going on here is I'm intending to set up this classic double stack on the e file. This pawn on c5 is weak, and down the road there's even potential to set up a classic double A battery with queen to e4, threatening to checkmate this black king. So in this position, MVL plays queen c7. I played the move rook to e1. I'm preparing to move this knight either to d2 or g3. Once I do that, these rooks will have great scope on this e file here, pressuring the bishop. Sample line, say black plays bishop f8. I have bishop c4, and now black's position is simply crumbling very, very quickly. So after rook to e1, MVL plays the move rook to d8 here. I actually thought that c4 was maybe the best move in the position, and after pawn takes, black has this move bishop to b4. If black were to play bishop takes c4 here after the trade and this nasty move knight to d6, white will win the game. I'm forking the queen and the rook. You move the queen, I take the rook, and if you take the knight, now I take the rook. Black takes, and after takes, bishop f8, and a move like g3 here, white is completely winning with a rook for the bishop. So that's why c4 would have made the most sense here. After takes, there's bishop to b4, and let's say I play a move like knight to d2 here. After takes, and bishop takes c4. White is still better after this move rook to e2, but it's a very, very minuscule advantage. Instead, MVL plays rook to d8, and now after the move knight to g3, black is in serious trouble because any idea with c4 is out the window. If you go c4 here, after takes and bishop b4, white can sack the rook, and after, or sorry, not sack the rook. I thought white could sack the rook here. Maybe I looked at the line wrong. But apparently, maybe after c4, is it rook takes e6? Takes, something like this. Maybe I'm confused. But after takes, bishop b4, computer also says white can play a move like rook to b1 here, bishop c3, and now actually white can sack the rook and play the move rook to b7 with the classic 90-degree right triangle here. And if black moves the queen, you take, and then you checkmate the black king. So MVL plays bishop d6. Now here I played the move knight to h5, and this is actually a mistake here. The move I should have played was this move knight to f5, but I wasn't quite tactically sharp, and what I missed after knight to f5 is I thought that black could go bishop to f8 here, and the bishops are kind of consolidated. Black's threatening to play g6 here. Say I play a3 and g6, bishop guards the pawn, knight goes back, and after say bishop d5, black is okay. But what I missed here after knight f5, bishop f8 is there's the in-between move, bishop to b5 here, attacking this rook on e8. Rook goes up, I take the rook. So this rook is kind of glued here, and if black plays bishop d5, trying to attack the queen, I can take this pawn, checking the king, and after takes, I check. Black moves the king, I take the rook, and in this position with a rook for a bishop, I will win the game. So I wasn't tactically sharp here because knight f5 would have been stronger, but like I said, I didn't see any threats here. I thought the black king side was very solid, and that is why I played the move knight to h5 instead, because now I felt that here the knight is potentially hitting this pawn on g7. There are threats of knight to f6. Maybe I can move my queen over to checkmate the king, so I thought the knight was simply better placed on the square. Additionally, black can never kick the pony with g6 because there will always be a knight to f6, whereas after knight f5, bishop f8, disregarding the fact that I have bishop b5, let's say a4 here, and g6 occurs, the knight will have to return home in this situation. Whereas with this knight on h5 here, there is no opportunity for black to remove the knight because there will always be this knight f6 forking the king and the rook. So MVL plays rook to e7, and now I play this move queen to e4 here. At this point, this is a very critical moment because I could feel that I should be better, but I didn't really see the concrete way to continue playing the position. So I go queen to e4, setting up the double A battery here. If black plays a5, I have the clean checkmate with queen to h8, and the king gets stuck on the back rank. So therefore, we get g6, I play check, king g7, and now I play this move queen to h4, swinging my queen over and guarding the knight, and reopening up this file for the double stack of the rooks. Here, MVL plays bishop to f4, and this move is apparently wrong. Bishop to h2 for some reason is slightly better, because after knight to e4 here, Apparently, black has bishop to d5, and this isn't a big advantage, whereas in the game, after bishop to f4 and knight to e4, now if black plays bishop to d5, apparently here I have this move g3, and white is winning. I actually don't know what the difference is. Let me just check this very quickly since we're doing this on the fly. If I go g3 here, apparently after rook takes e4 takes, bishop g5, queen g4. Now after bishop to e6, queen to f3, black can take this pawn on h3. This is frankly just computer chess. Doesn't make any sense to my mediocre human mind, but apparently this is okay for black. Instead, we get bishop f4. So I go knight to e4, and now we get this move rook to d5 being played here by MVL. This is a big mistake here, but already it's very hard to play. After bishop to d5, for example, g3 is good. I also saw queen to f6, and I think there was something like knight takes c5, which I thought was very strong as well. All roads here lead most likely to a white victory, so there are multiple paths forward. Instead, MVL plays rook d5, I go queen f6, king g8, and now I move my knight to g3 here, opening up the file for the double stack. A lot of pressure here towards these kingside pawns in this position, and already here, it's going to be very difficult to defend. Now, MVL plays bishop takes g3. After this move, black is completely lost. The computer preferred bishop g5, and it's a very strange move, queen to d7, and apparently it's only a small advantage for white, but moves like knight to e4, hitting the bishop, the pawn, and the threat of a family fork, or moves like bishop c4, putting massive pressure on this e-file, it simply doesn't look defendable, and in a game with no increment, low on time, I don't expect any human to find this. So MVL takes the knight, I take back. Now we get the move rook to g5, and here I play this move g4. Pawns all support each other. I have the double stack on the e-file, bishop c4, bishop g6, all kinds of threats, and black cannot withstand the pressure. So MVL goes rook e8. I play bishop to c4. We get queen to d8 here. At this point, bishop can't move. If you take, it's simply checkmate in 2. So you can't move the bishop. Queen d8 is the attempt to go into an endgame here where only rooks are on the board. But with an extra pawn here on g4, this king on the back rank, all these pawns being very, very weak, white should win very soon. So MVL plays a5. I go rook to e4. We get king f7. If black were to play a move like a4, now I can go h4 here. Rook guards the pawn from being captured. Rook goes away. I take the pawn on g6, and I win the game. So we get king to f7. I check. We get king f8. And now I play the move rook to a7. MVL plays h5, and here I decide to take this pawn on a5. Now, objectively here, I probably should have taken this pawn in retrospect and taken on a5, because after this move d3 takes in this position, I can play the very cool looking move pawn to h4, attacking the rook. Rook check, king h2. If the rook goes back, I can simply play something like rook to e2 here, guarding this pawn against the threats on the second rank. And with these two pawns being super, super weak here, white will win the game. Instead, I take right away. We get takes. I take. We get this endgame, rook c8. And now I play this inexplicable move, rook to a4. Now, after this move, white is still probably winning, but king to f1 would have been a lot simpler here, because if black plays the move c4, I can simply go king to e2. If black takes and plays rook to c2, I can go king d3, takes, and after the move g5, my rook guards the pawn, and now I have a free hand to start pushing this a pawn all the way up the board. This is simply an endgame, which I can't mess up, I should say. Not lose, but can't mess up. Instead, I play rook to a4. We get king e7, rook c4, and here I completely overlook this idea of rook to a8. Now, after MVL plays the move rook to a8 here, I suddenly realize that even though I should be winning this endgame, it's going to be a lot trickier than I would like. So I take the pawn. We get rook to a2, king f1, king d6, and now I play the move rook to c8. MVL here plays move d3, and while this move is apparently not the best move in the situation, from a practical standpoint, I really like it, because even though black is down 3 pawns here, one of my pawns my pawns here on the g-file are doubled, and these pawns on the queen side are now completely split. They're not together, so they can't escort each other up the board, as there's this file in between. So after king to e5, I play b4, we get rook b2, and now I play the move rook to c4, guarding my pawns on the 4th rank, while this pawn on d3 guards my rook on c4. We get king d5, and now I play this move king to e1 here. This move is maybe not the cleanest way to win, but I really thought it was the best try, because if I don't go king to e1, let's say I go king g1, now black can try to play a move like rook to b3, and even though this is probably still winning somehow, after rook c5 and king to e6, I have to play something like b5, and again, in this endgame, I have 2 extra pawns, but one set of my pawns are stacked on top of each other, and in a low time situation here, there are very, very good chances for black to draw the game. So I go king e1. I give up the pawn on g2, but now my intention is to bring this king near these two pawns. The king, if it gets the c file, can support all the pawns. So it's just a matter of bringing this king over because my rook on c4 is anchored by this pawn and it guards both these pawns at the same time. So MVL plays rook b2. I go king c1, rook b3, king c2, rook a3, and now I play the move pawn to b5. MVL plays rook a5, I go rook b4, and here after the move king c5, I play this move king c3, and here MVL decides to resign the game. Now the reason that Maxime resigned here is that now with this rook behind the pawn, I'm threatening to push my p all the way up the board. Say black plays rook a8, if I get this pawn rolling here, this is simply a very easy win because this rook never can move away since I queen the pawn. If black ever trades, this is a winning king and pawn endgame. So you can't really let this pawn go forward, and if you play king b6 to blockade here, now I can go king to d4. Let's say we get rook to a3, and after king to e4, I don't know, let's say rook to a1. Here I can go king e5, bringing my king up towards this f file. Let's say rook f1, rook f4, rook d1. Cleanest way to win here is to go king f6, takes. And in this position, this king is so far away from this passed pawn here that white will win the game very, very soon. In this position, white will eventually set up the classic bridge. You go check, and then now you bring the king back. You get check, 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 and rook g4, and the pawn will promote. Now, I know I went through those last couple of moves of the sequence very, very quickly, but at this point with MVL seeing this looming endgame where there's no hope of surviving, he resigned this game, and with this win, I get my second victory in a row. So I've now won 2 games in a row. I'm feeling pretty good about myself. I have 3 wins and 1 loss, and my team, the Fire American Gambits, we win our match against the upgrade Mumba Masters by a crushing score of 16-1. We get 5 wins with the white pieces and only 1 lone draw. So we get the job done in our first match of the day, and now in our second match, we're playing the 2-time reigning Global Chess League champions, the Triveni Continental Kings, who are also incidentally leading this event as their icon board. Alireza Firouzja is off to a really good start. Now, Alireza won his first 5 games, won against all of the other top boards in this competition, but in the last 2 rounds, after starting off with a red-hot 5 out of 5 and winning every game, he has lost 2 games in a row to Fabiano Caruana and Gukesh Domaraji. So the Alireza on a 2-game losing streak. I know there's some chances to try and take advantage, but more importantly, the team must get a second win on the day to have any chance at reaching the grand final. So I have the white pieces once again. This is sort of the way it goes after all the blacks at the start of the tournament, and I open with the move e4. Alireza plays the Sicilian with d6. I play d4, takes, and now I play this move f3. Now, when I play this move f3 here, this is what's considered to be a slight sideline. It's not dubious or anything, but it's something where I'm aiming to avoid mainline theory in something like a Sicilian knight or a classic Sicilian. So I go f3, Alireza plays e6, and now I play the move c4. Now I could have played this move knight to c3 here, and after a6 we would have transposed back into a Najdorf, but I decide instead to play this move c4, trying to take advantage and build this classic Maroczy bind structure in the center. Now I knew that this is not a very concrete way to play for an advantage, but I was kind of hoping that Alireza would not know the best continuation, or he would be feeling very overconfident and aggressive and trying very hard to win with the black pieces. So we get knight c6, knight c3, bishop e7, bishop e3, and now Alireza castles his king. Now in this position, I was thinking for a while about potentially trying to move my knight away from d4 to stop this d5 thrust, but if I do this, black can still play d5, temporarily sacking a pawn, and after knight to b4 here, there's tons of pressure on his pawn on d5, and I'm a little bit behind in development, getting my king to safety on the king side. So I play the move bishop to e2 here after a bit of a think. It's not really a move that I wanted to play. Queen to d2 is another option to play, and after d5 takes and castles, the game goes on. But I wasn't really feeling it. Alireza wasn't moving super slowly, so I had a feeling he was still in his prep, and I decided to play bishop e2. Now, when I play this move, this is in a sense effectively a draw offer, you could say, because now black can play the move d5, forcing open the center of the board, and there are going to be mass exchanges. So I take, I decide to cast, I take, and now I decide to castle. Here, Alireza plays bishop e6, we trade, and now he plays the move c takes d5. Now, I was a little bit surprised by this move. I was expecting Alireza to take with the bishop and play something like bishop to d6 here, but after bishop d3 and g6 in this position and b3, probably the position is fairly balanced. Computer gives black a very, very tiny advantage, but I think in human play, this game will be a draw. So Alireza takes with the pawn. I go bishop d4, bishop f6, and now I played this move queen d2. Now, as soon as I played this move, I was unhappy with myself because I realized I had missed an opportunity. When I played the move queen d2, or I was calculating, I should say, the move that I was expecting was rook to b8, and here I can play this move b4, and at this point, I'm going to be able to push these pawns on the queen side here. I have this majority of the 2-on-1 on the queen side, and actually, as you can tell from the valuation bar, white has a significant advantage. So, as soon as I play queen e2, I realize that rook b8 is not the only move black has, and true to form, Alireza immediately plays this move a5, stopping me from playing b4, and once this happens, now at this point, I pretty much resigned myself to making a draw. Had I played b4 here, what I think would have happened is something like rook to c8 in this position, and after a move like a4 here with the pawns rolling up the board, there is a lot of play for both sides. I think that white has a tiny advantage. It doesn't mean that I'd be able to convert it, but there's a lot left in the game. But when I go queen d2 and Alireza plays a5, now I'm unable to play b4, and with black having this rook b8, rook b4 idea here to hit the bishop on d4, I simply decide it's time to bail out, pull the parachute, and I play this move a4. Now, the reason I say that I'm bailing out here when I play a4 is I never am going to get b4, and my idea is to simply plant this bishop on b5 here, and this leads to a bunch of forced moves. So Alireza trades, he plays rook b8, I go bishop b5 here, planting this bishop on b5. Alireza correctly plays the move bishop to d7, eliminating this powerful bishop. If black were to play a move like queen b6 after takes and a move like rook to c1 here, this bishop is awesome. I control this open c file, and white should have great practical chances to win the game. But instead, Alireza plays bishop d7. Now I must take the pawn, because if I trade, this pawn on b2 is a permanent weakness. There's rook b4 as well, and if anybody's better here, it should be black. So I go queen d5, Alireza takes, we trade, takes, and now I play rook d1, we get the trade, and here Alireza plays move g6. He does not blunder with rook takes pawn, which would run into the classic ice skater checkmate with rook to d8, king is trapped, there are no squares available, and it's GG, why not? So Alireza goes g6, creating the Lufthansa for the king, this escape hatch on g7, I play the move rook to d2, we get a4, rook d4, we trade, and here the game ends in repetition with a draw. Now, you might be thinking this game is very boring. Shouldn't you have tried for more? I had this one window of opportunity to play b4, which I missed. Other than that, it was just simply a very boring game with limited chances for both sides. So a touch disappointing for the fans, I'm sure. I was hoping I could get a bit more, but now let's talk about the rest of the match. So I drew my game very quickly, which meant that I was on the sidelines watching the other games very closely alongside the team captain and watching it all unfold. Now on board 2, the game was a relatively balanced draw between Richard Rapport and Vidit Santos Gujarati. Maybe I have my order mistaken. In the game between Artemiev and Wei Yi, that was also a boring draw, and so it came down to a couple of critical games. On the women's boards, there was the game between Teodora Iniak and Alexandra Kosteniuk, which was a very topsy-turvy game, but resulted in a victory for us after Kosteniuk made a huge blunder. So we were ahead by 3 points. In the other game between Bibi Sara and Zhu Jiner, that was also a draw, and that meant that everything came down to the last game of the match between the two juniors, the defending world rapid champion Volodar Murzin and Marc-Andre Morizzi from France. Now, for much of that game, it looked like Murzin had a tiny advantage. Maybe it was about equal. Ultimately, in the end game, it started to veer in the other direction where Morizzi had the bishop pair and maybe a slight advantage, even though the draw was within reach. But Murzin ultimately would get too low on time. He would make a huge blunder at the end of the game. He would lose, and this means that we suffer a heartbreaking loss in our 8th match of this event, and this means that we are all but eliminated from competing for the top 2 places. Now, in many of our matches in this event, which we've lost 3 specifically, it's come down to one game, it's come down to a couple of critical moves. All 3 of the situations have gone against us, so it feels like a little bit of bad luck, but nonetheless, it is what it is, and you have to move forward. So even though my individual result has turned out very nicely in this event, I am very disappointed with the overall team performance. It would have been nice to have done better, but alas, sometimes things aren't meant to be. So tough day for us. We're now eliminated from the top 2. There is a chance to finish in the top 4. There will be a match between 3rd and 4th place. The goal for the next 2 remaining rounds do our best, try to win, and see where the chips fall. So that's going to do it for my recap from today, the 7th day of the Global Chess League being held here in Mumbai, India. If you're not already subscribed to the channel, make sure that you smash that subscribe button below, and we'll be back with a recap tomorrow after I play in the ninth match, I should say, when I have the white pieces against Fabiano Caruana, the current world number 3. Hope you guys enjoyed this recap. I'll see you very soon and have a great rest of your day. See you guys. Bye.